Modern web frameworks are great. They make it quick to spin up a new project and develop it very quickly as well. There are times that you don't really need a web framework, but how do you know when to use a framework and when not to? Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I've been trying to make videos, at least a video a week, but sometimes I'm not able to meet up, but I'll try to be more consistent. As I've learned in recent times too, one thing you should do is to stay hydrated and generally be safe. So onto today's video, frameworks, web frameworks specifically. You need a little bit of history to understand how we got to where we are today. So back in the early days of the web, we had very simple websites, basically just web pages that were more like Word documents than the web pages we have today. This is because the users of the web in its early days were mostly researchers, and they used it mainly to send documents. So as the web grew, more people coming onto the internet, browser vendors improving their browsers every year, we started seeing new features, more images, more videos. Flash was a thing, and then it wasn't, and the web became more complex. This now led to a separation of the web that we know today, which is now mostly front end and then back end. And then we have what we call an API layer. An API is an application programming interface. It's basically a way for the front end to communicate with the back end. This coincided with the introduction of Ajax, which is the technology that allows the front end to communicate with the back end through, the API. And once we had that, we now started seeing more and more separation between the front end and the back end. That brings us to where we are today. We have all of these useful tools, from CSS frameworks to JavaScript frameworks to full stack frameworks. One thing that you should always know is the right tool to use for the given job. So first things first, you have to have an idea of what you want to build. And then when you have an idea of what to build, first thing you shouldn't think about is what framework you should use. There are other things that come before that. Some of these things could be, who are you building this for, like a target market, and then what is needed to build, a domain, server, hosting, a team, and things like that. Then once you get through all of that, then you now start thinking of what tool to use for the job. The tool depends on your idea. If you have a very simple idea, for example, you're a front-end developer, you're just starting out and you've built a couple of small projects here and there, and you want to put together a portfolio site, I don't think the first route is to use a framework just to put up a portfolio site that says who you are and some of the projects you've worked on. In fact, you should lean more on the basics, the fundamentals, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Put together a portfolio using just that, because it showcases your skill more than anything. I remember the last version of my portfolio site that I built was strictly just HTML and CSS. Very minimal JavaScript was used, but I also did a little bit of Node.js to power the backend. But then when you start building something beyond a portfolio site or a to-do app, you start to think of scale in terms of the usage based on traffic and the developers working on the project. There are some issues that come with scale. You start to think about code maintainability. How easy is it for someone new to come on board? Start to think about reusable components, because different developers working on different parts of an application at the same time, and having a robust solution in general. Then you can start to think about frameworks, because this is exactly where they shine. There are various types of frameworks We have CSS frameworks like Bootstrap or Tailwind CSS. We have JavaScript frameworks which are more popular because the JavaScript community is loud. We have Vue, we have React, we have Angular, and a lot more. Some people say there are as many JavaScript frameworks as there are stars in the sky. We also have full stack frameworks like Meteor.js and Django. So the framework you use depends on what you're trying to build. The thing with frameworks is that they come with a lot of advantages. They have a predefined code structure, so anybody that learns about the framework already knows what to expect when they come to a project that I built with that framework. Also, you can use the latest JavaScript features without worrying too much about cross-browser support, because these frameworks have tools that transpile JavaScript code into something that the browser will understand. Most of these modern frameworks are built with reusable components in mind, so you get that benefit out of the box and it makes it easier to work as a team. The frameworks are data driven, which means as the data in your application changes, the user interface is automatically updated. So you don't have to worry about DOM manipulation, which is usually costly, because the framework, especially JavaScript frameworks, they do this efficiently. Finally, one of the biggest pluses of frameworks is the community support. Big communities like React and Vue, they have a lot of support, so most likely if you run into challenges, there's somebody or some resource that can help you to find a way to solve your problem. While there are a lot of advantages of frameworks, there are also a lot of disadvantages too. One of them is the learning curve. It takes time to learn the syntax, the best practices with these frameworks. They are also usually highly opinionated, meaning that they have a predefined way of doing certain things. For example, I prefer Vue over React, mainly because Vue allows you to separate your HTML, CSS, and your JavaScript logic. And while React allows you to do that, most people that use React write with a syntax called JSX, which is a mix of JavaScript and HTML. It's not something I personally like, so it makes it hard for me to navigate React projects, even though I have worked with React in the past. And then there's always some overhead costs because the framework is full of some base code that you are importing into your project and building on. So you can optimize this code as much as you can, but there will always be that overhead cost of JavaScript. And if you don't optimize this correctly, you can start to have bloated web applications. And finally, frameworks are constantly evolving. There's always some new version, especially with JavaScript frameworks. They move very fast, so you always have to stay up to date and try to learn what is the latest trend and whatnot. So it can be a bit much. And with that said, I hope this gives you an idea of when to use a framework and when not to. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this. Until next time, may the code be with you. Take care.